1 year ago, while working as a bartender, I made the decision to purchase my first project car, which was a 1985 Nissan Patrol, and to use it to teach myself how these things work and how to repair them. But boy, I was not prepared for what was to come. Let's find out why. After forgetting to change the transfer case oil, we finally got around to doing it, and this is what we found.
She'll be right.
But before we tackled that, I had a few things to do first.
Where we are up to, if you have a look in the dash here, you can see that there is a massive hole where the speedo should be. So what we've done, we've gone and bought a brand new secondhand one off eBay, and we're gonna put that in here so we don't have that big hole anymore.
Now this was pretty simple. Just 4 screws to take off the sun shield, and then another 4 screws to take the unit out. And then it was a matter of transferring the few plugs at the back, and then after that, it was swapped over for the new one.
Look at that. That is awesome. All right, let's get the steering wheel on. Oh, actually. Woo! Look at that. One thing.
Gauge doesn't work.
Oh, no, it does. It comes up slowly.
Oh, yeah.
Very slowly.
And with that new gauge installed, we went for a drive to make sure it all worked. Now thank you Ella for the camera angle of the year, but yes, it all worked well. This morning's mission is to finally fix an issue which I've been dealing with ever since I bought this car like almost a year ago now. So let's say I ever want to start the car for some reason. You know, you get the key like normal people, you put it in the hole, you crank it over, and when you go put it on accessory on, it sends a signal to the glow plug timer to start glowing the glow plugs. Patrols notoriously have really bad glow plug timers, so this one got the snip snip, and now we don't have it. What we'd do is we'd go, pop the bonnet, and then what we'd do was get one end of a wire, attach it to the glow plugs, and the other one to the positive, which one is positive, and then it goes up and fires everything. Ooh, watch that burn. And then we'll hold it down for 10 seconds and I have to run across here. But not anymore, thank God. I'm sick of having to do that way. The plan was to wire up a manual glow plug button, which means bypassing the glow controller that sends a signal for a certain amount of time depending on the temperature of the head. And by doing this, I can glow it as little or as much as I need depending on the temperature.
Power on. If you watch the voltage gauge. Ta-da.
Now with that system working, I can finally move on to the main project, working out how to pull this transmission out. And first my list was to remove the gear stick from the top of the gearbox to allow it to slide backwards when I got to it.
Hello, old friend.
The next step I guess was important was to remove any gear oil remaining in the transmission or the transfer case. This will make it lighter and easier to move. Not that it really will matter because it's 90 kilos anyway.
Please don't go everywhere. It is the start of the day. Nice. Well, that's draining. I know it's a little bit different color normal. It's because I got some random additive which I put in there just to see if it'll do anything for that wine. Brand new gearbox oil. So I need to keep it because I'll be putting it back in because it's brand spanker. Awesome. Let's let this just empty out now.
While that was draining, I did the transfer case, which was a lot easier to crack the cap on. And as you can see, it's brand new. So that's going back in later. And this was the beginning of my lifelong hate of the drive shaft flanges. The handbrake one came off relatively easily, but with many more to do, I know how bad these things can get.
Guys, do I have an empty rear diff?
We were all just going to ignore that moment where I mistook a metal sheet up against my wheel as an empty diff. Now these were the hard ones I was expecting. I began trying all different ways and angles to hold the bar from rotating while being able to undo the bolt. I went from the breaker bar to my foot, back to the breaker bar, and then onto anything else I can find, just trying to get the best grip without it falling off every time I kicked.
Yes! I don't know how I did it, but look at that. Oh. Like, this is an hours of work trying to get any of the move. And I've got one. Does that mean I've got 4 more hours left of this? God, I hope not. So I'm about 2.5 hours in on trying to get this stuff out, and I finally found something that will work. Alright, I'm not sure this is different to how it before, but basically I've got it lodged up there so that it physically has nowhere else to go. Before I had it lodged up here and it'll just bang out. So here, there's nowhere else for it to go. So hopefully, with my leverage bar, I got stuff in my eyes.
As you can see, I was having the time of my life and definitely not losing my sanity. But finally, after many tiring hours under the car...
Oh, yes. And just like that, that's how you do it.
Alright, where is the starter? Next on the list was to remove the starter motor bolts and then jack up the engine so it doesn't sag down when I begin separating the transmission from it. And following suit, I supported the transmission itself and began undoing all the mounts holding it to the car. Just to give you some time frame, this was day 3. I don't know why it was taking this long either, but I do know it just was not any fun at all. And by that point, I could remove all the bell housing bolts and begin working my way out, while trying to get around the non-removable cross member because somebody thought that was a good idea. Thank you, Nissan. With these gearbox and transfer case setups, there is a substantial amount of weight off to one side, which means you can't safely raise or lower it from one point. So I had got another jack out, both with blocks of wood at this point, and did an hour-long dance of moving it up and a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left and then just wiggling it and then down again.
Yep. Well, it's down.
So with the transmission finally out of the vehicle, that took way too long, we can finally inspect these components and determine what's causing this whine. So let's have a look at this thrust bearing that came out of it, and I've wiped it down from all the grease that was on it. What's interesting is when you spin it, but it sounds very dry and it feels unbalanced is how I would say it, but you can feel the weight shifting from side to side, which will explain something down the clutch plate. Alright, welcome aboard. So here we have, I think what's called the clutch plate, I don't actually know. What is most interesting to me is in here. Let's have a look at these prongs, or whatever they were called, forks. Already off the bat, one's already bent in a lot more, and you'll see that these ones, where the thrust bearing pushed in on this side, is a lot more indented than this side. Now, the reason I think that could be is because remember the thrust bearing, how it felt uneven? It felt like there was more, say, ball bearings on one side than the other. I could see that when you put a pressure down onto it, it might cause uneven pressure because they're not properly spaced, which will then in return cause that issue. But the question is this the reason why I'm hearing this whine? Don't know, don't care, I'm still gonna do anything anyway, so let's take this clutch plate out and do some more inspections. And by simply removing some bolts around the plate, it came right off and I could then put my new one straight on. Right?
Oh god.
Well, of course not, because that's too easy.
Ugh.
Ugh. This won't fit. So we have the old clutch, made for the SD33T, and then we have the new clutch, which I ordered online, which was also for the SD33T. Why are they different sizes? Well, that's fun. Turns out there's 2 different sizes of clutch plates between the SD33 and the SD33T, and sometimes overlap apparently. By the way, even though the website says it fits SD33T, it's kind of half my fault. This is a 240mm clutch plate, and what's in the Patrol is a 275mm. So either I need to put this back in, or I need to spend a lot more money and buy a 275mm clutch plate. So instead, we're going to ignore all this, and I say we pull apart this bad boy. Even though the website stated it was for the turbo model, I guess there has to be some sort of overlap. And while I was waiting for the correct one to arrive, I had to move on to something else. And that was separating the gearbox from the transfer case. And during this time, I did struggle to find online resources for the specific gearbox and transfer case combo. So I was kind of going blind into this. And And eventually, after doing some digging around the boxes, I think I found out why. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have found the issue. Take a look at this. So, we're inside the transfer case. Okay, I got the gears, everything's fine. Now I dare say that could be a reason why I'm hearing that whine. Absolutely buggered. So that's not good news in the slightest. Alright, so you join me back under the vehicle for a bit of a snack. You know, I was just a bit hungry, so got some bread, might have a snack on it. And while we're here, while I'm snacking on my bread, I thought I might try and punch some bread into that hole. For no particular reason. I thought I might just see what happens, but good snack. Hey there, gorgeous. Now I swear, if this does not fit, I'm going to cry. I've sent back the old one, I've just picked up the new one. Cost me 450 bucks. Nice, it's a cardboard box. So, having a look-see, see that it is the same dimensions, which is bloody brilliant. Now the interesting thing was this scorch mark here. Something's obviously got caught and wrapped around it. It doesn't actually look too bad, I don't think. Not that I actually know what a bad clutch looks like. This is what the pad looks like. There's a little bit of flaking from the material here. But while the transmission was out, I thought I may as well replace it. And here we are, one clutch that actually finally fits. So that was good news. Now I could finally make some progress on this. Here you can see me taking the old throwout bearing out of its holder and using the vise squeezing in the new one. That, my friends, is one throwout bearing installed onto the little grabby thing. It's nice and smooth. Let's move on. Unfortunately, feeding the spigot bearing bread didn't make it want to come out, so I had to go to Repco and buy the specific tool which did it in 30 seconds flat. And that's another 2 hours wasted. But hey, at least I could just hammer in the new one and everything will be oh, okay. So it's a new morning, so I thought now's a good time to show you the damaged gear on the transfer case to see why we're all doing this. So on the input gear of the transfer case, look at those teethies. Yeah, they don't look very good. So they're extremely chipped away and very pitted, and originally I did think that this gear was fine, but it's got a bit of pitting too. But none of that really matters or concerns me because...
Now look at this, how much meat of metal is left on these gears. They look...
So this was a 4-speed Cameron picked up from a friend of his, and the gears had so much more meat on them. So the plan was to separate the transfer from the gearbox and then put it on mine. So I spent a lot of time pulling apart the transfer case just to get access to the 3 bolts which held it together. But there was something that I didn't quite consider. Alright, I'm actually genuinely nervous about this, because if this doesn't work, then I need to drive to Melbourne or I give up. Yeah, the 4-speed has a different input shaft sized gear. So, another second-hand box. Alright guys, tell me what you think. So, the gears are supposed to be that thick, but it's this one. So it's nowhere near as good. So have a look at those gears. Look at the thickness of the gears themselves compared to this one. Like, those are chonk. So everything is finally apart, and dear Lord, that took way too long, but I'm so excited to say that's finally all done. Everything's all apart, so we're officially at the halfway point. I think that's what this makes this. But let me show you what we're working with. So we've got our old input gear, whatever it is for the transfer case. So look at the pitting, the wear, or whatever other word you want to use for it. It's basically destroyed. It's chipped, it's dug in, it's uneven, it's not good. And now this is my brand new second-hand one. It's got a decent amount of wear on the teeth. They're pretty thinned down, but they're still not to a point. There's still a bit of chunk left in them. But if we just compare side by side, like, yeah, look at those difference. It was as simple as swapping over the good components from the bad and then putting it all back together. Which, you can tell how long this was taking me just by listening to how the music changes every 2 seconds. After discovering that I can't go back under the way it came, I shuffled it to the other side and painstakingly dragged it under the car, ready to go up. So I forgot to put the throw-up bearing in, so that's now in, and this is where we're at. Got the crane coming all the way through. I need to somehow push it forward while it's straight, so I think I'm going to jack the back up, and try and do something. Like, I don't have any plans, I'm just doing things that look like they're going to get me closer to being flat and in line and in the spline. And that is what I did. A lot of pushing and pulling and maneuvering around that stupid cross member. I am absolutely furious. So I haven't picked up the camera at all today because I knew it was going to be a big day to try and get this transmission in. Fine, whatever. But I got here at 9 o'clock in the morning. It is 2 in the afternoon and I just got it in. 5 hours. Plus yesterday. Fucking 7 hours of trying to get this bloody transmission in. And this is what made it work. We've got an engine crane in through here, dropping down the bottom. But no, you can't just do that, because that would be too simple. So instead, I had to pull apart the dash to be able to get the engine crane in forward enough because it was hitting the screen. And you can see I broke a bit of the cheap plastic, which is fine. So I had to pull apart the entire dash, which was being stuck together by this one screw, which I couldn't reach. That's frustrating. Next thing on the list, this cross member. This is a fully welded cross member. Now on the GQs, I know that they're removable, you know, to make your life easier when you're putting in and out of this transmission. Not this one. So this is jacked up there to raise it so then it can go in. The bottom and the top clearance is smaller hole than the size of the bell housing, which means you have to go in, tilt it slightly forward so the top will lip in, forward, down, without fucking up any of the internals. What the fuck, Nissan? What the fuck? And by the way, this weighs like 150 kilos or 100 kilos. So I'm doing this all by myself. I'm craning that. And then I'm getting out and craning that. I have to climb all the way out, all the way in. I think without a doubt, this has been the worst experience of my life. Would you look at that? It's a removable cross member. So you can drop everything down and access the transmission up there. Why did they have to make everything so difficult? Also, this one looks like it weighs a lot less. I'm pissed. I'm so mad. But at this point, I was glad as there was nothing else that could annoy or hurt me. Oop. But at this point now, there was nothing else that could annoy or hurt me. I think I do much prefer reattaching these compared to taking them apart because I think it took me 5 minutes instead of 5 hours. So much better. I hate this so much. So as you saw, I spent way too long trying to get the cover onto the handbrake. It just wasn't going on. And what was happening, this adjuster wheel, which you rotate to open and close it up, it was getting hit on the outer side. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, that shouldn't be happening. So I moved it around, adjusted it, started taking it off again, because obviously I've done something wrong. Now that was like 2 hours of under here trying to get it on, and I knew I was doing it correctly because I had this reference one here, which I hadn't touched. Okay, yeah, that's lipped higher than that. Got the spring there, that's tight, that's all good. Got the adjuster bit there, okay, along that bottom shelf, all right. So I went back, mirrored it on there as I was putting it back together, and it just still wasn't working. It was 2 hours, and then Cameron comes and look around, and he takes one look, and he's like, that's not supposed to be there. That is supposed to go up there. What? So, for the last 2 hours, I've been using an incorrect reference, which is why it wasn't going on. Pain and suffering. That's all I feel right now. Pain and suffering. Today is the day, ladies and gentlemen. Please! Hopefully, today, I'm going to be driving this thing, probably on the axle stands, even though you're not supposed to. After like 3 weeks, I've pulled everything out, replaced it, chucked everything back in, so I now no longer have to go underneath that car. I am sick of it. Never again. I don't want to see the other side of my car. I hate it. My back hurts. We still have a few things to do before it's all good. And it's all in here. Welcome back to the engine bay. Alright. Step 1. New alternator. Cameron stole my old alternator, so now I have a new one. Spirits were high as I knew this was the final thing that needed to get done. Just reattach the alternator, screw the starter motor back on, and then fiddle with the clutch slave cylinder until it was back in. I even had the supervisor there with me. Then, it was the moment of truth. I had nearly given up on this project many times. Just everything seemed to either go wrong or I did it wrong. but I knew I just couldn't. So let's go find out if this thing drives. So, this is it. About 2 weeks worth of work leads up to this moment right now. I'm a bit nervous. If this doesn't work, I don't know if I have the capacity to pull it all apart again and put it back together. I've got a new clutch, a new throw-out bearing, a new transfer case, which means there's a lot that we're relying on to go right. Let's see what happens.
3, 4, 5.
It also feels very weird putting it into first while... she's not going in. There you go. It needs a bleed, but it works. I've actually done a thing. Oh. So there you go. Turns out, a bartender can replace a clutch and replace a transfer case. Who knew? All it took was about 2 weeks. And a lot of effort and a lot of not giving up. I just had to keep on going, but far out did I want to. Oh yeah. These gears are good. What do you reckon? Now let's see if this still makes the whine.
Better now. Yeah. It'll have an ever so slight